Ah,
Maria. Someone at some point should record us what our dancing before we go live, because what people don't see behind the scenes, like when that music's playing, what we're actually doing in the background here.
I was going to say it's very dad and mum dancing, if we're honest
Yeah,
about it.
it is.
We're not talented in that department. Maybe we should work on it. It is hilarious. What's funny is that when we have a guest, we're dancing in the green room, and the guest is sort of looking, thinking, "What is
Yeah,
going on?"
especially if they haven't watched the show before and they come and think, "What have I got myself into here?"
Fear,
Yeah.
fear. Yes. How
So
are you anyway?
very well. How are you doing, Maria?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm scared that we're almost in December.
Yes. I always feel, I was talking to someone earlier today about it. There's that kind of strange thing that happens in December where you haven't kind of quite got your head around the fact that January is only like a couple of weeks away. And so you kind of get into this point in December, you suddenly go, oh, all these things in January, and I've come, haven't even started planning for them yet.
I know. Anyway, who's our guest
Yes.
today?
We have a phenomenal guest today. We have a very, very, very special guest today. Her name is Maria Franzoni. You may have heard of her because today we're talking about speaker bureaus. And when it comes to this topic of speaker bureaus, working with speaker bureaus, there is no finer expert to bring in than Maria. So as a speaker, at some point, you're going to consider working with speaker bureaus just to help you grow your fees and your business. Speaker bureaus can not only get you higher fees, but they can also get you booked by the right type of clients and take all that horrible admin stuff off of your shoulders. When the relationship works, your business is going to fly to the stars. Sounds great? How do we make it happen? Today's guest has spent 23 years, amazing, working in running international speaker bureaus. She will be sharing some insights into what it takes to get listed and work with bureaus. Yes, Maria Franzoni is in the hot seat this week. Welcome, Maria.
Be gentle with me, James.
I will, absolutely. So, bureaus is one of my favorite topics. I know some speakers blow hot and cold on the topic. So, for those that don't know too much about bureaus, maybe don't currently have a bureau that they work with, what is the benefit of being represented by a speaker bureau?
There's lots, but let me give you two or three to start off with. So, bureaus, as you know, because you work very successfully with bureaus, tend to attract more qualified clients. And the clients that they attract tend to stay with them and work with them regularly. So they have a great relationship with their clients. And what do I mean by qualified? I mean clients that actually have decent budgets and are prepared to pay for the value that speakers bring, which is really important. Speaker bureau staff spend their time booking speakers. That's what they do. So they are really skilled at it. It's what they do all day long. They are booking speakers. They're maybe dealing with the briefing calls. They're dealing with the follow-up. They're doing the prospecting, sending proposals. This is all they do. They're not distracted by having to go and deliver any speeches. They're focused, totally focused on that one thing. And as you know, the more you do one thing, the better you get at it, right? And then another one, which I think is really important to speakers, is they collect the money in advance, which, you want to be sure that you're going to be paid. Bureaus get paid before you speak, and they hold on to the money for you on your behalf. They deal with all those horrible contract negotiations, things like withholding taxes, with all the different VATs, suppliers getting set up as a supplier, arguing with those long scale payment schedules. So there's a lot of advantages, and there's much, much more, but those are three that immediately come to mind.
Now, I know whenever I talk with other speakers, and they see that I'm represented by some bureaus, one of the very common follow-up questions they ask me is, how much are you paying in commissions to these bureaus? How much are they taking? So is there a rule of thumb that we could be thinking of as speakers in terms of what a bureau should be taking? And it might be useful at this point also to think about, because there are some bureaus that obviously disclose the total fee of what the client is paying, and there are other bureaus that work in a slightly different way. So what about commissions? Where should we be thinking there?
So commissions do vary. There isn't a blanket figure, but there is sort of like an industry norm, if you like, or an average. And the industry norm is around the 25%. Now, the reason you can't dictate that every bureau works in that way is because you have no idea what the bureau's overheads are and what their costs are. But most bureaus, if you ask them, what is your commission? What's your percentage? They should tell you, that you're working with them. They should be transparent about it. And there's no reason why they wouldn't be transparent. The times when that percentage will change is that if you are, so let's say, for example, your fee is £1,000. 25% on £1,000 isn't worth getting out of bed for many bureaus. In fact, most bureaus won't touch that because £250 won't cover the cost of the logistics, let alone anything else, let alone pay the salesperson. So it does depend. So if it's in those cases, you might find that the fees doubled because the markup needs to be higher in order to cover the overheads. Then when you get to the other end and the fee's 500,000 or 200,000, it's going to be a much, much smaller percentage, much tinier. So it's very difficult to say it's a blanket figure because of the different fee levels, because of the different overhead levels. But if you're working with a bureau, I don't think it's inappropriate to ask. Why not?
And I do something, I don't know how many other speakers do this. Most other speakers think I'm totally insane to do this. So I'm fine about being a bit crazy. But I actually, as you know, when inquiries come in, I will often give it to speaker bureaus. And sometimes it's because I know that they're going to be able to negotiate a higher fee than I would possibly negotiate myself. But other times you can work with those bureaus if you have got a really strong, like close relationship. I find that I kind of work with them and we kind of come to an agreement. They say, like, if you bring in the inquiry, it's this, and maybe we have a slightly different arrangement if we're doing it. And for me to be able to take some of that stuff away, you mentioned all the admin, all the contracting, all the invoicing, all the other stuff. I'm kind of happy to pay a bit of money for that, but I know not everyone is in the same situation there.
Yeah, and some speakers I know in the past, when I've worked with speakers, I've said to them, look, if you're passing me the inquiry, I'll take 20% rather than 25%. And speakers are happy with that. And that 20%, it takes so much rubbish off your shoulders. Because if you've had to get listed, as a supplier, and if you've had to deal with, taxes and visas and whatever, it saves you so much hassle. It really does.
Now, I'm going to make a list here because I'll have done pretty much all of these. What are the biggest mistakes speakers make when it comes to working with speaker bureaus? I'm going to tick them off as I hear all these mistakes I've made.
But I don't think you've made any of these mistakes, actually, James, because obviously we've worked together when I was running my bureau, so I know exactly how you work very well with bureaus. So first of all, I think the biggest mistake that speakers make, and it's the same mistake they make if they're working directly with clients or prospects. So please don't do this, but you assume that every bureau is the same and that they have exactly the same interests, exactly the same end client, exactly the same fee ranges, and you treat them all the same. You cannot do that. That's the biggest mistake. I would say that the second one is assuming that once you're listed, that's it. You're going to get inundated with bookings. It doesn't happen that way. So sometimes it's unrealistic expectations as well of the bureau. So I think those are the biggest mistakes. You haven't done any of those, I don't think.
Maybe not too bad, but probably the other mistakes I've made instead. A different set of mistakes.
I've got a longer list. But
there's a big list.
It's a short show.
So I knew that when I started getting into the reason I was told to really kind of get into working with bureaus is my friend Josh Linkner, who's a great speaker, said to me, you have to realize that 75% of the higher paying speaking gigs come via bureaus in one way or the other. So that was the kind of reason I wanted to speak on certain types of stages. And that made sense for me to kind of work with bureaus. But I kind of had to build, I think I now work with 30 different bureaus. Like we've got a new one just started working with a day called Epic Keynotes, great bureau based in Boston, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So you got 30, let's say in my case, I've got 30 bureaus. Other speakers might have 10 bureaus or even a couple of bureaus. Should you work with lots of bureaus or just limit who you work with to maybe to one or to two?
It depends. It's very difficult to give a black and white answer. It depends. If you are looking to work internationally, you are better off having bureaus that represent you in the various territories that you want to be working, because they have a knowledge of that territory. They're in that place. They can meet with the clients. They know what's going on for the clients. They have a better knowledge. Or an international bureau that has offices in different areas. So then you would need more than one bureau. When you're starting out as well, you don't know which bureau is going to be the one that, or the two or the three that are going to book you regularly. So you say you work with 30 bureaus. I guarantee that not all 30 of them are booking you a lot, and some may book you just once. It's exactly the same as clients. you're going to have 80% of your turnover is going to come from 20% of the bureaus that represent you. So probably 6 of your bureaus give you the majority of your business. You're nodding at me. You see, I love
Yes,
Pareto.
absolutely.
I love Pareto.
It's the Pareto principle at
Love it.
work.
Yeah, but the thing is, you don't know what percentage that's going to be, and so depending on
Yeah.
how much you need in terms of business and how many bookings you need per year, that will dictate how many bureaus you need to be listed with. And then as you work with them, you'll see. But you have to check with bureaus. If you're listed with a bureau and you're on their roster, you do have to check, is it okay if I'm listed with other bureaus? And if they'll normally say yes, that's fine, because they're not going to necessarily give you as much business as you are expecting from them. But then check who's your direct competitor, so that I don't work, have that question, because there are certain bureaus that don't want to have the same people because they're approaching the same clients.
Yeah.
And most speakers don't even ask that question. It's a good question. Add it to your list.
But it's interesting as well. I've gone with a couple of bureaus listed on a couple of bureau sites, and I was very excited to work with these bureaus because they were the famous bureaus that you would know of. And I've had, like, I can count on one hand how many bookings I've had from those bureaus, and it kind of disappointed me. I thought, is it me? What am I doing wrong? But then just having conversations with them, I suddenly realized that where I sit on where my topic is, I'm probably the lowest priced in my field. They're putting me up against maybe $50,000 to $100,000 speakers. I'm not quite in that range. And so they were saying to me, it's just because you're almost being discounted at the start, because we're placing you because your topic that you speak on alongside these other ones, and they almost instantly, if it's a company, they'll almost instantly discount you because you're the lowest price. So it's kind of like knowing where you are in the pack. And then I've worked with other bureaus. I'm just thinking, I'm about to do a call after this with a prospective client, and the bureau that I'm working with on this is a very small bureau. It's one person. She's the owner and she's the agent, and we have done so much business together this year. It's incredible, but chances are she's not going to one of the big famous bureaus that you would know of, but there's a relationship there, and she is going out to kill for me, as an agent as well. And she believes in what I do, and she really understands what I do as a service.
Oh, that's interesting. So there's 3 people that, for me, match that criteria. I'm not going to guess who it is, but it's going to be one of 3 people. So that's interesting. I think I know which bureau that would be. It's absolutely true. And I remember London Speaker Bureau originally represented Bear Grylls exclusively, and they had an arm that was the management company, and they took Bear on when he was 21 and unknown, built him up. In fact, they were involved in the TV career, etc. And as his fees went up, they were always finding people to slot in underneath. So when his fee went very high, I won't reveal his fee because it's not appropriate here, then you'd have to have several people at different levels. So that's what they've done with you, James, is they've put you in, and as your fee goes up, somebody else will come in and fill that slot, because you need to. When somebody says, this is the topic, this is the result, well, these are the different levels. So you have different levels of speakers, which is actually a really good way of finding, is there a gap on someone's roster?
Absolutely.
Because that person's in. But we should talk about putting your price up, James.
There you go. We're going to come to a seminar that you're going to do. I think I'm going to come along to this as well. So how do you get the speaker bureau? Let's say you're with a speaker bureau, and when we talk about speaker bureaus, I kind of feel it's like when you say you work with a client, a corporate client. You don't really work with a client. You work with those individuals that are there. It's a personal, it's a relationship. So how do you? Let's say you've got a bureau relationship. It could be with the owner, agent of that company. It could be with an individual agent, a territorial agent, for example. How do you get them to book you more?
Well, that's the $64 million question. I don't know why it's 64 and not 84 or 90, but it is the saying, isn't it? That's the big question. How do you get booked more? And there's a lot around this that you can do, but let me give you a couple of tips. The thing for me is, once a speaker is on the roster, that speaker needs to be easy to work with. So I need you as a speaker, or I needed you when I was in my bureau, I need you to be responsive really fast. So you know this because you have a lot of direct inquiries as well. You know that when a client comes to you looking for a speaker, or when they go to a bureau looking for a speaker, they might come at 10 o'clock in the morning, and by midday, they want all the suggestions. They want to know what their fees are, and they want to know if they're available and how they're going to tackle the topic. You don't necessarily have access to all the speakers' diaries and calendars, and you don't necessarily have access to all of the speaker topic descriptions, etc., if it's slightly different from the norm. So you're now relying on these speakers to come back to you super fast. And what happens is you'll go out, they probably want 4 or 5 suggestions. You'll probably go out to 10 people in the hope that 4 or 5 will come back to you in time. And those are the ones you'll include. So often in a bureau, in fact, I know that Speaker's Corner, for example, Speaker Bureau, will play the game of saying a speaker's name and say, if that person's not available, who are the other 20 that you could put in? So often we would have 20 or 30 names for one particular topic that you know you can put in, so that for those occasions where you've got to be really fast, get the answers, you know who you can go to straight away. And the ones that will get booked again and again and again are the ones who've got some kind of process or system to come back to you super fast. Yeah. Whether they're able to do it or whether they have some kind of support. That gets difficult the busier you get. You do have to have that kind of support. But so that's make it really easy for bureaus.
There's that line, time kills deals.
It does
happen with I've taken work from other speakers in the past because we've got, like you said, like systems, we've got other members of the team. It's not just me. And I'm on WhatsApp with everyone in addition to emails, and those 6 bureaus I work with intensely, we're messaging with each other pretty much every day. So there's that speed, and that's, I see that's from pretty much all the top professional speakers versus the celebrity speakers. There's that speed. They've got that systems, or they've got a team, or even if it's just them, they just have a way of kind of dealing with that.
It's interesting, actually, James, you mentioned celebrity speakers, because of the celebrities, the big names, clients will wait for their availability. And in some cases, those celebrities, those big name speakers, actually expect the client to sign a contract beforehand and pay a deposit before they'd even say, yes, I'm interested, yes, I'm available, or no, I'm not available, because they are inundated with time wasters. Yeah. As you can imagine. So I've had more than one occasion where I've taken a very substantial deposit, usually 50% of a celebrity's fee or a big name fee, and held it in the account while I'm waiting for that speaker then to say, yes, I'll do it, or no, I won't. And if they say no, I've then got to give the money back. So that's a lot of work going on behind the scenes for a client that perhaps people don't know. And I think that's another thing about bureaus. Bureaus work really hard. I've digressed, but I just want to make that statement. Bureaus work really hard.
So there's this idea of being responsible, being reliable, being quick to respond, so that bureau can get back to that client, to put you forward, to know you're available for that day. I know some bureaus will put you forward even if they don't know you're available, because some work obviously in slightly different ways as well. But one of the things I certainly find, and I don't know if you find the same thing, just talking to other speakers, if we're maybe coaching other speakers, is that they say, listen, I've got this speech, my kind of signature speech, and I'm just not getting booked from bureaus. So now you've got an event coming up, I know, really soon, a seminar really soon. So maybe kind of talk about that, because I think often when we find, it's not necessarily that the speaker isn't a great speaker, but there's a lack of what we call product market fit in the startup world. And it's not quite hitting. And I think it's actually one of your USPs, Maria, is that you're very, very good because you know the market very well, but you're also good at knowing us quirky speakers very well, and that we have a passion for this topic, but you kind of like got to find out. So tell us a little bit about the seminar, and tell us about maybe how it can help speakers who have maybe the core of a really good speech, but it's just not connecting with buyers.
Okay, well, the seminar you're talking about is actually very much focused about, working with and getting booked more by speaker bureaus. And one of the criteria for that is, of course, that you have to have a current bookable topic. Because if you haven't, then the bureau can't really do anything unless you are super famous. So what happens is, and in fact, Andrew Davis says this in the book that he co-authored with Michael Port, which is absolutely correct. The less famous you are, what happens is that the client will book your speech and then book you, or will buy your speech and then buy you. But the more famous you are, if you're a celebrity, they'll buy the celebrity and then say, what would you like to talk about?
That's a great point.
So the topic, yeah, it's great. And in fact, their book is great. The Referable Speaker, if anybody hasn't read it. But that point is so valid, isn't it? That the more known you are, the less you have to worry about your topics. But the less known you are, you've got to get your topics right. You got your topic right, you made it unique as well. You gave it a unique spin, and you chose a topic that was hot in the top 10. So that helps as well. That makes it a lot easier. In fact, top 5.
But also on that, it was nice to feel like, okay, my topic, I'm kind of hitting a couple of different things. I'm hitting basically creativity, which is a growing trend, obviously a trend, and that was in that kind of top 5, but also hitting kind of future work, adapting to change, and the intersection. But it was interesting. A Bureau sent me the other day his latest list of the top 10 things that they're getting booked for. And it made me, I was talking to my wife just this morning about it, like, do I need to tweak this a little bit to be a bit more with not so much where we are now, but maybe where we're going to go in the next year, 2 years. So take us through, like, if someone's coming to your seminar that you're running, take us through what that seminar actually looks like, and maybe take it how it can help those established speakers who've been speaking for a while, who are known for something, who maybe feel that need to do a little bit of repositioning so they're still relevant for the market with bureaus.
Okay, well, there's lots of things that I think speakers will find useful, but the one that the one thing that a lot of speakers have an aha moment about, and I didn't realize that speakers didn't know this, but obviously I've worked with speakers for a long time, and when I was running my bureau, I invited 15 speakers to come to a session. This was back in 2018, so that I could talk to them about how speaker bureaus work, so to help them get more business. And most of these speakers had been working for years and had been successful and actually had no idea of the inner workings of a bureau. And once they did, sort of, you could see the light bulbs going off, because they're thinking, now I understand that. Now I know how I need to relate to bureau people. I know how I need to speak to them. I know how I need to help them and how I can support them. And I'm glad to say that many of them have sort of put that into action and had great success. But I think that's the big light bulb moment for people who are already successful. But we're covering 4 areas. We're going to look at the different types of bureaus, including managers, agents, and bureaus, which are all different, so that you can identify, which bureaus you should be going for, who should you be working with, who are your partners. How the speaker bureaus work, which I've already mentioned, which is a revelation. If you haven't worked in the bureau, you would not believe it. It's just incredible. And then, of course, how to get listed with bureaus. Whether you're listed already or whether you want to get listed with more, it's important to know how to go about that, because the mistakes made by speakers approaching bureaus, oh my goodness, I could write an entire book on that. In fact, I might have to do that at some point. And then, of course, you're on the roster. Now what? The questions that all speakers have. How do I stay connected without pestering? How do I get booked more once I'm booked? How do I get booked more often? How do I create a partnership with a bureau? So all of those good things are what we're covering, and people will come away also with a "Are you speaker bureau ready?" checklist, which I think that will make life a lot easier, because you can literally tick the boxes and say, no, I need that, I need this, I need to do that.
Now, I've attended your seminars before, in-person ones. This is going to be a virtual seminar, so it means it's open to anyone, anywhere in the world, if they're watching this just now. How do they get registered? How do they do it? Is there anything that they need to know? Is there an application process they have to go through? What's the process of registering for this event?
Well, what we'll do is we'll put a link on Speaking Business TV, if that's okay with you, James. Otherwise, you can go to the speakingbusinessacademy.com website and go to the events page, and it's called How to Get Listed and Book More Often with Bureaus. And I'd love to see you there, because you will come away with some aha moments. You really will. I'm hoping you've had a few aha moments today. I don't know. Did you learn anything, James?
I've learned loads of things. I've also learned things I probably shouldn't have done. But what's nice about it is I think it's been a very challenging. We shouldn't make too light of it, but it's been a very challenging 18 months for bureaus.
Yes.
But pretty much every bureau I speak to now, you can feel the confidence in their voice. They're a bit overworked just now, because what many of the bureaus had to do is they had to let a lot of people go in the individual agents. So they're doing double the amount of work now with half as many people. And now you're seeing this tsunami of bookings. And I think this is going to continue into next year, very much so into next year for now in persons. And so they're feeling a little bit stressed. So probably the thing that's not at the top of their mind is adding new speakers to their roster, but they always do need to add new speakers. So you want to ensure that you are one of those speakers getting added to these rosters. So that's why you want to go to Maria's seminar and kind of learn exactly how to do it. Just take away a lot of the nonsense, because I had to learn a lot of this stuff just from asking other speakers, making mistakes. So this event, this seminar you're doing didn't exist when I got started. So I wish it had, because I would be signing up for it if it had existed then.
You're very kind. Yeah, you're very kind. Thank you, James. But yes, it is. You can make a lot of mistakes. And coming back to the fact that bureaus are very busy, this month is ridiculously busy for bureaus. It really is crazy, and it's not a great idea to approach bureaus at this time. And that's another thing we'll definitely be covering is, when should you approach a bureau, because it's just like buried. November, busy, busy, busy.
Yeah, exactly. Timing is everything on this. Maria, thank you so much. I would just say coming on the show. It's your show. What am I saying? This is very strange.
Thank you for being kind. Thank you for being kind.
Well, it's great. Everyone should go, if you're watching this just now, if you are a speaker, it doesn't matter whether you're just getting started as a speaker, or you're an aspiring speaker, or you've been doing it for many years, just sign up, go in this seminar. You are going to learn tons of things. That's going to make you a better speaker, a more bookable speaker, which is kind of, as we go into 2022, what we all want now.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Well, James, I know you're going to rush off because you're speaking at 2:00. So I'm going to let you go a little bit early because I'm kind like that. So we're going to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you very much for listening in. Hope to see you on the 26th of November if you can make it at the Speaker Bureau seminar. Take care.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.